Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Quinn.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
Can you hear Craig?
Just the two of us.
Yes, unfortunately. Craig, just FYI, that you're live on YouTube right now.
Straight. I'll hit it big.
That's right.
Yeah, this is your big break, man.
Okay.
That's the big.
Hey, Melissa, I'm not sure if you know. I think you're using Kevin's account.
I thought I had logged out.
Yeah,
I am Kevin.
It's showing you as Kevin. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, cool.
That's the mayor's office.
Hello.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
Hey, good morning, Dwayne. How are you?
Good.
Right.
So how many have you guys already done so far?
We did 2 yesterday and we did 1 earlier this morning, so that you're on the list of 16.
That is, it is for the safety of employees on the yard.
Right. People start rolling in here soon. So how does the format go as far as the meeting?
Many of the yard waste.
I know we're
Hey,
live on
Melissa,
YouTube.
do you mind muting yourself? We're getting a lot of background noise.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. What was that, Dwayne? I'm sorry.
The format goes, I know we're doing the introduction. I didn't know just how much are you and Melissa involved, and
Yeah,
are y'all going to be involved in some of the things?
Yeah. So what we'll do, the way we've been doing it is, I've got to read a statement at the beginning of the meeting, just letting everybody know why we're doing this online, to comply with our open meetings law stuff. Okay. And then I'll kind of read a couple questions that the mayor has posed that she wants answered through this subcommittee's work. And then we'll kind of open it up for you all. You can kind of give an introduction and ask everybody to kind of introduce themselves.
Okay.
Yep. And just a heads up, we're live on YouTube, and yes, we're live right now.
Yep, I saw that.
Morning, everybody. How are we?
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Hey, John.
Hey, Kip.
How are you all? John?
I think I've worn out my welcome. I think my wife's ready for me to go back to work at the office.
That can happen.
Yeah, I think I passed that threshold a while ago.
Yeah.
Kevin, have you had several of these yet? Yesterday?
Quinn and I did them all day yesterday. We've done 1 today. We've got them all day tomorrow.
Right.
Several on Monday. It's kind of become part of the routine.
Yeah, good. It'll be helpful for those that of us that are first timers here for your guidance.
They've actually been very good conversations. And the most encouraging thing I think we've seen is a lot of the folks already through their own associations or just on their own volition have really thought through what reopening means for them.
Good.
Mhm.
I'm getting a copy of the reopening guidelines for the Grand Park up in Westfield, Indiana, that large complex just north of Indy. I'll put that out to everybody once I get that in.
Morning, Kim.
Kim?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ollie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Joanne, how are you?
Commissioner, good morning.
Good morning.
I think we all are here and accounted for now, aren't we?
We are, and it is 11 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and read a statement that we've got to read at the beginning of each of these meetings. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, state of emergency, and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held via video teleconference pursuant to Senate Bill 150 as signed by the governor on March 30th, 2020, and Attorney General Opinion 20-05, and in accordance with KRS 61.826, because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for the meeting. So thank you all very much for being here today. I'm Quinn Welch in the mayor's office. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the meeting started by putting forward kind of the three main questions the mayor wants us to answer. The first of those is, what are our plans for reopening, and what are the benchmarks and guidelines that are needed to reopen? 2, what do businesses and organizations in our sectors need to do in order to reopen safely under the governor's 10 rules to reopen? And number 3 is, what is our process for scaling back operations while safely maintaining operations in the event that we face a second wave of COVID-19? So we've got 16 subcommittees that are all working with their various sectors and their businesses and organizations to kind of create a safe plan for reopening and to make sure that we're complying with the governor's 10 rules for reopening, and that process for which we can scale back without bringing operations to a halt. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dwayne Peavy of UK, chairing the subcommittee.
First of all, thank you everybody for joining us today on such short notice. So there's obviously a lot of subcommittees in this, and I definitely appreciate everyone accepting the invitation. As Kip will tell you, I probably took longer than you guys did. Just a sifting through everything just to make sure that I could serve in the best capacity possible. But it would take some time first, just kind of, I know several of you have worked with each other quite a bit. I know I have, but just for the people that are watching on YouTube as well, just go ahead and introduce themselves. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Dwayne Peavy. I'm going to chair this subcommittee on university and high school athletics. I'm currently the deputy athletics director at the University of Kentucky in the athletics department. Maybe you go first, John.
Okay, I'm John Pohl. I'm with Visit Lex. Equine State.
Kim?
Did you hear that?
Yes, I can hear you.
I
Did
am.
everybody get John?
You can go ahead, Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
All right. I'm Kim Shelton. Kim Shelton, the president of UK Sports and Campus Marketing, which is a function of JMI Sports, is the multimedia rights holders with UK Athletics.
Thanks, Kim. Holly? I don't know if you can hear me. Go ahead, Holly.
Sorry, I can get the thing to unmute. I was spinning the mouse all over the computer. I'm Holly Sheely, and the Vice President and Director of Athletics at Transylvania.
Thank you, Holly. Julian?
I'm Julian Tackett, Commissioner of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association.
Kip?
Good morning. This is Kip Cornett, and I am the co-chair with Mary Quinn on the visitors sector. Also do own a business here in town called Cornett, and working with 4 of the 8 groups in the visitor sector. So thanks again, everybody, for volunteering their time to do this. We really greatly appreciate it and greatly need it.
And Kevin and Melissa are both on to help us as well, along with Quinn. Kevin, you want to start?
Sure, Dwayne. I'm Kevin Atkins. I'm the mayor's chief development officer. So I work with all our economic development partners and do some governmental affairs.
I think Melissa has the best background of all of us today, so we'll save you for last.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa McCart-Smith. I work for Mayor Gordon in her office, and I'll be your staff person with this meeting. I'll send out minutes and invitations, and you can reach out to me if you have questions or need to connect to the group.
Thank you, Melissa. Did everyone get the, I also emailed to each of you the 3 questions that the mayor wants us, the 3 things that the mayor wants us to cover in this. Obviously, the focus of our continuing Zoom meetings will be more focused on answering those questions as we go down the line. So don't expect to have all the answers for those 3 things today. But I just want to give you a heads up so you have them already written down before Quinn shared them with you. Obviously, I don't know if you guys have already had some thoughts, just some general thoughts about reopening Lexington as far as from the university high school athletics realm. But hopefully, we'll use some time on the call today to discuss those things. Quinn, Kevin, Melissa, is there anything that we need to get to before we open discussion?
I don't believe so. I think we're on track here.
John, I know you mentioned earlier that you had some information that you wanted to share, but any of you feel free to bring up, what are your general concerns? Obviously, our first and foremost is the health and safety of the people involved, including the citizens of Lexington, along with everybody that's visiting our area. But from your areas, obviously, we're well represented in where we reside and the things we're involved in. But from your areas, what are your biggest concerns from a broad sense with reopening Lexington?
Well, what I was going to put out as I get it is the reopening plan for the Grand Park Sports Complex up just north of Indianapolis. I know William Knox their director of sales, and he's going to send me down their copy. It's a 3-phase opening. A lot of it's based on defined space and timelines in regards to how many people can be in that area, whether it's a field or a court of some kind. So I'll put that out to the group as I get that from him later this morning.
Okay, thank you. Looks like my internet acting up a little bit today. I have some other documents to share too. Some of our conference athletic departments have already, because their states are at different points than we are, they've already got some pre-established protocols that we can view and look at. I know some stuff from LSU, University of Tennessee, are two of them in particular that at least we want to probably take a look at. I need to get one more of those delivered to me today, and I will pass it along to the group before our next meeting. Just from the university athletic side, what people are thinking as we're crafting ours here, the University of Kentucky as well. One of the questions I had was, obviously we're an athletics committee, but the guidelines that we are presenting, are they supposed to cover things younger than high school too, or just university and high school from the staff? I don't know if you have any answers to that part.
Obviously you all's expertise is everything from high school up, but I think any guidance that you all can provide, if it even affects those below, that is more than okay with us.
Okay.
If you've seen some,
I just wanted to make sure. I didn't see all the subcommittees. Yeah, I didn't know all the subcommittees, so I didn't know if there was one in particular for youth sports or activities or anything of that nature that, to make sure we're not stepping on anyone's toes. But obviously we'll keep those things in mind with any athletics thoughts that are going on altogether. Anyone else want to chime in? Any global thoughts of some things maybe that we can gather going into our next meeting to help answer these 3 questions?
Well, Dwayne, I can tell you that
I think for us,
some of the things we've been looking at, we've been meeting on this for about a month, and of course we're at the bottom of these levels today, but it seems like every time we get a good bit of information, we also have to disclaim it with the fact that our level doesn't have the resources that, I suspect, and I don't want to speak for my alma mater, I certainly want Holly to do that, but I suspect that Holly's resources might be different than Dwayne's resources, might be different than the NFL's resources. That's what, as we've seen things about opening, our biggest fear is too much too quick. One of the reasons that we have purposely steered away from talking about moving championship dates and moving playoff dates, et cetera, is the minute we put that out there, then the games before that become more important to where people might not make wise decisions. So we're really trying to juggle all of that from a sports medicine perspective. I mean, our problem is drilling all the way down to, are we going to have enough medical providers to give physical exams for the athletes that are required each year? Because the difference, as I have told my friend Mr. Sankey a couple of times in meetings, is he's got 14 he can write a letter to, and we've got 280, and their availability of resources is so different. So our biggest concern has simply been too much too quick, and I think that that's why we probably are taking a little more guarded approach, and even our steps of keeping the campuses closed are going an interval at a time to let's see what happens. And Holly, I realize my English professor at Transy would have wanted me to say too much too quickly, not too much too quick.
Holly, you had something?
yeah, I was just going to say, I think for Transylvania and probably in some veins similar to University of Kentucky, You know, we're also having to work really closely with the academic side because we need the campus to open academically versus online, especially for Division III. Our conference has made a decision that we will not make any announcements until at least June 10th about what the conference is doing proceeding forward. And that was pretty much predicated on the fact that our conference is made up of schools in Indiana, Ohio, and we're the only Kentucky school. And the majority of the schools are not making an announcement, a final announcement about their fall until either later in May or the first part of June. So I think by the time June gets here, there'll be more definitive decisions from, at least from, I think the college and university scenes. I'm not sure about Division I's, but I know for Division III, that's sort of seems like a timeline across the country.
I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, with Kentucky, University of Kentucky being in the Southeastern Conference, a huge footprint with a lot of different states and guidelines. And that's why I believe for our group, we've got to focus so much on the things that have to take place for us to reopen, not so much on the dates and the calendar, which everybody wants to focus on because nobody has any answers because we can't control when those things happen. But my hope is when we have the finished product, it looks like, okay, this is what we like to see. These are the things that have to be in place for us to start that reopening process within athletics. Keeping in mind, there's several other things that have a different level of importance than the athletics portion. But just like you said, Holly, we're looking at the edge of what main campus is doing, is because even having facilities open or people on your campus to do anything is probably something that's going to be a precursor for athletic events. But there's training aspects and things of that nature too. So whether we're talking about high schools, you know, keep it in mind, it's a little different situation from talking about what's going on a high school, in the summer months compared to might be with one of our colleges, because we know we're going to have some level of school going on. But that'll be a precursor of what kind of summer schools and what kind of things are going on our campuses educationally. But when we look at the broad scope of things that aren't tied to a school, we have to think about those as well, because whether that's our parks, you know, some of these youth leagues, we're probably hearing more about those as the summer months getting increasing. So just thinking about the guidelines, and I liked your point about we have to make sure there's things that are somewhat feasible for everybody to some degree, you know, not just, hey, if you got enough to do this, and that, that'll take care of itself. Just like the NFL is going to do some things that maybe college football can't. And so I think we've got to just stay where it's possible, thinking about the city, which will actually, patience helps. It might be, I think, selling people on something that's got a small chance to happen is probably the hardest thing to do. And I think what you're saying, Holly, what your conference is doing is trying to just give some people some pause. We're not going to have any decisions till mid-June. Kind of lets people start working through some things versus thinking every week I'm going to find out something new that's going to trigger another bullet point here. So obviously I think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think one thing that makes this committee a little bit different than a lot of the others is, you know, if I'm not even sure if we're phase 3 or phase 4, but we're definitely not phase 1, and definitely not phase 2. I think, you know, you're going to see some slight openings of other parts of the economy that, you know, we're going to be, you know, again, for a lot of different reasons, whether it's the academic year or whatever, is that, you know, we're kind of at the tail end of the reopening. Not totally, but we're definitely further back than, I think some of this committee, not our committee, but of the overall are opening up, you know, that's days away, 15th, 11th, 15th in there. So I think that, you know, and it's good to, I think to your point is we're getting a lot of input in a lot of different areas. But at the end of the day, you know, we're really looking at the fall And there's a lot of time between, obviously we still need to plan, but we are on the tail end of this as far as the reopening. At least that's the way it seems to me.
And Kip,
Right.
to dovetail from your comment, what we see our role, at least as it pertains to the university, both on campus and in athletics, is to bring partners to the table to assist with what the new experience may be, whether it be student athletes experience, whether it be the fans experience, whether it be the students experience on campus. If we're talking about every student on campus getting a mask, who can provide those masks? And do we have a partner that can assist in that? If it's, the cleaning supplies that are needed on campus or in athletics, how can we bring a partner to assist with that? And so that's, being in phase 3 or 4 may give us some time from the university's perspective, but then maybe for others on this group to think about collectively, who can we bring together to partner to find ways to offset? We know there's going to be incredible costs associated with some of these things, but what partners can we bring to the table to collaborate on this reopening?
Well, I want to agree with something that Kip said. I could not underscore it anymore. And we have been slow to trickle this out. We've tried to give little bits here and there. I spent 6 weeks as the enemy of travel ball because of some things we had to do, but turns out they missed playing what wasn't being played. So, it really didn't hurt them. At the same time, I'm not sure a starting point, and maybe we look to guidance. Maybe we look to the health people for guidance to help us with this. But what we have decided from a messaging standpoint is we're going to get out there clearly until we're at phase 3. We're not looking at competition. And I think that is something that would, at first, is going to draw a firestorm, I know. But at the same time, when people look, it is, I don't know what your all's thoughts are. And Kip, I certainly don't want to put words in yours or Holly or Dwayne's or anybody else's mouth. I think when we all saw the criteria for phase 2, we kind of knew sports was out. To have all that PPE available and have all that instantaneous stuff, it's just not, I don't know very many places. Matter of fact, I noticed in the commissioner's rollout yesterday or day before on the NFL stuff, it's very clear that right now we're only talking about personnel with the team. We're not even talking about players and some of the things they're going to be starting to do. And so they're acknowledging that it's going to be a slow rollout. I've seen that in some of the draft university plans. We have to rely really heavily because of the liability involved with the age kids we're doing. We have to rely real heavily on health. And I know that if I can make a joke and nobody hold me bad for it, I've said this is the ultimate revenge of the nerds because the scientists are in charge. And right now they really are. And I mean, we really have to realize that's what's happening because we can't afford to go against them. From a liability standpoint. So we've talked a lot about this, but I think the biggest messaging point that we see next on our level, which for us also includes middle schools, is that they're just, unless something dramatic happens, we find a vaccine the 1st of July, something else, we're probably not looking at competitive sport competition till phase 3. And that's just the reality of it. You at first you don't want to put that out. I mean, it's kind of like our decision. I think all of you on this call that have been involved in administration know that the day we suspended our state basketball tournament, we knew it wouldn't be finished, but we didn't want to say that. We didn't want to put that out there. We wanted to give everybody hope. And now we've got, in addition to the problems that you all might see at the collegiate level and above, we've got a group of parents who for the first time in their life have had to be teachers for 6 years or 6 months, 6 weeks, seems like 6 years. And so their patience is about this thick. And it is whenever you talk about not being able to give them an outlet, to give them this, I don't know. We've looked at the feasibility, and I know we'll talk about this at our next meeting, I'm sure. But we've looked at limited attendance stuff, and it all sounds well and good till you decide who's going to sit up front and say, you get in, you don't. You get in, you don't. Some of my peer state associations went through that. They tried to cut attendance and had fist fights at the door with security guards. They had all kinds of stuff, trying to tell somebody's uncle they couldn't come to the game. So, you know, it is a real dilemma, but messaging wise, I think even if it's just internal to this group, I think we are looking at phase 3, and that's probably a good sound thing to start, unless they redefine the phases.
Right. Did everybody get a copy of the 10 steps from the governor? Does everybody have that? Okay. And if you didn't, I can make sure I pass that along.
Dwayne, do you think it would be helpful? I've got them pulled up right here. Would you like me to go through those real quick, just so they're
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Sure. Continue telework where possible. Phase return to work. On-site temperature and health checks. Universal masks and other necessary PPE. Close common areas. Enforce social distancing. Limit face-to-face meetings. Sanitizer and hand wash stations. Special accommodations, and a testing plan.
For just to give you an idea, Quinn, in our case, there's a state law that requires schools to develop an emergency action plan. It's buried in KRS 160.445, and that EAP is specific to athletics. We've already begun discussions. We've tried to ask the people at LRC, is it an overreach for us to say their plan has to be immediately revised and include a testing plan? And we don't think it is. We think this is just something we're going to have to do. But I can only imagine what that'd be like for the Parks Department. But I think they're going to have something. And Kevin, you and staff may know better than I if that's already in the works. But we're going to tell our people they've got to amend their emergency plans to include the testing fee. Actually, for us, 1, 2, and 10 are the hardest. For our office, 1 and 2 are the hardest because we're so small anyway. And when you start getting into 50% phase-ins and certain people and certain schedules and the complications that being lucky enough to receive the CARES money created for at least till June 15th. So, you know, it's a challenge that I can only imagine below us what's going to go on, a challenge that might bring.
I mean, and your point earlier, Julian, about the funding, keep in mind, we're not just talking about normalcy. There's different levels of that, but obviously revenues are down because of things we didn't have too. So
everywhere,
we're in an even more strenuous standpoint of putting extra funding into something that not budgeted for.
Exactly.
So it's going to be something we have to just keep in mind as well.
Exactly.
Kevin, I just wanted to ask and see if you, as we are coming across, and I think there's kind of this general consensus of we are this, you know, phase 3 a little bit down the line. If you or anyone there with LFUCG had some thoughts on some things that you wanted to make sure that this group commented on or contributed to, you know, we definitely don't want to, you know, I think everybody knows those 1, 2, 3 questions, but you know, some things that you want to make sure that we don't miss, that we're able to provide you as a group from our committee to make it successful.
Yeah, I think there's 2 really key parts. One, when you restart, how are you going to do it safely? You know, this group has not only their immediate players and staffs to take into account, but they also have fans and how that fan base interacts. So you've got that. I think the big question is, and this is no different than restaurants and others that will be answering this question, when you reopen the gates, the doors, how do you talk to those who are coming, the fan base, that it's safe to come back out and engage in these activities?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The other thing I think, real quick, and then how are you ensuring that, like the PPE that's going to be needed and required, making sure that you do have an ample supply of those things once we all know exactly what's required.
Dwayne, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Do you anticipate that eventually, like the SEC will have kind of a master plan for every one of the schools, or do you think they are going to leave? Because, for example, I saw yesterday the Miami Dolphins had already gone out and said you know, their stadium seats 65. Here's the new Dolphin Stadium at 15. Now, I don't know if they decided, you know, who those 15 are or all that. Do you think the conference is going to allow it more into, you know, come up with your own plan, you know, kind of your own governor? Or do you think there'll be a real, you know, hard set of guidelines that says this is what every school in the conference must do?
Well, obviously you've got, 14 different schools. I think they've covered about 11 states. And I think they're working through that now as a group, meeting 2-3 times a week. I think the goal is to come to an overall league wide. This is what we're doing. Kind of like the NBA start getting out there and all of a sudden they pulled themselves in and everybody said stop until everybody could do it. I think that's what you're seeing a little bit of. And that's kind of the Miami Dolphin thing. I think I'd be surprised if the NFL doesn't pull that all in, because from a competitive standpoint, that gets there too, right? Yeah. But I think it's probably better to be on the same page, because they do have a group internally of experts that did it from a how do we reopen play from the league standpoint. So you've got that from the conference. You've got things going on the EOC on campus. You've got us trying to think internally about each school from athletics. And so I see those things making a universal decision. The concern, as you've seen publicly, is will all the leagues do that, right? Or will a group of leagues get together and they're trying, but when you come down to it and it means dollars and cents, that's always going to be the risk. Can you wait until everybody's on board, or you're going to have a big enough group to say we're moving forward? I think the goal in the SEC is for everybody to have some level of guidelines, kind of like we're trying to set for the city, and then everybody, you know, can have some variance within that.
Yeah.
And Dwayne, to that impact too, one of the things that we're hearing a lot about, and you would expect this, you talked about 11 different areas, much like the pushback is stronger in some of the areas of our state that don't have a lot of tests or don't have a lot of positives. That's what we're going to see statewide. Now, luckily, this group's just worried about Lexington area, but I think that's going to be one of the real barriers, is that we are truly in all 120 counties, and we still have 9 or 10 with no cases. So they're like, what are we waiting on? And meanwhile, in Kenton County and Jefferson County, they're wanting us to start sports in September or something. And so you're right, it's going to be, the challenge will be independence, autonomy. I haven't been necessarily affected by it. That's going to be the statewide challenge. That may not necessarily be a Lexington challenge.
And Julian, on that subject real quick, this whole effort, the Economic Response Committee, the governor has asked that cities and local governments and businesses kind of create those plans and submit them to the governor. So there is a potential that a plan like this could end up being a part or used as a model for some sort of statewide plan as well.
Oh yeah.
Just wanted to note that.
I mean, that's a good point, Quinn. And I mean, like I said, it all kind of trickles from that same thing. Usually somebody wants to be first. Somebody wants to be last, right? And everybody else is kind of in the middle. And usually the ones that are kind of get out there first, they might set some trends, whether that's states, whether that's schools, whether that's cities. And then it kind of trickles back more toward the center, because either you learn from those groups or they kind of pull back to everybody else. And I think that's what you're seeing out in the public right now, whether that's some school announcements where, hey, this is how we're going to deal with this. And then they've all had to make new announcements, the ones that got out there first. Some you haven't heard much from. But then as groups, we're starting to realize that we've got to kind of be together, because as you know, as a city, if we're the only one doing all these things and then no one's coming into the city because they don't agree with what we're doing, right? Or we're not going anywhere else. So we don't have any opponents. Or, you know, if the SEC schools don't agree, I mean, who are we going to play? You know, so I think some of the competitive nature of us being centered around the athletics portion, there's competition. So you have to have some agreement to some level. And I think that's why for us, it's not like one restaurant that wants to go do this if they've got a chance. I mean, because we have to have some form of agreement, some league, some group, something to have these competitions get started. And I think that's kind of to your point, Julian. I mean, if a lecture can have what it want, but the good thing is it's being submitted up top, you know, because otherwise we just be playing each other. You know, I mean, that's kind of how it's.
You know, and again, this is just with this first meeting, I think there's going to be a lot of broad statements, broad thoughts. And I think, you know, one of the things that seems to be evolving, and I'm spending too much time getting information in too many different areas you feel like your head's going to explode, that I think, you know, there seems to be clearly a sets of protocols that are going to be universal through 2020. And I'm not going to go through that list, but I think we all kind of, the hand washing, the social distancing, I don't think any of that's going to disappear. But I think what we've also seen is also that protocols are changing and evolving, because I remember back, it wasn't that long ago, don't wear a mask. Masks aren't needed. Now we're wearing masks. I think by the time we get to phase 3, we're going to see evolutions of, I think like I said, I think you have one set that are pretty definitive that have little to no chance of changing. And then others that I think that we'll, you know, start to see, you know, what level of stringency, because, you know, we are going to have, you know, there's a decent chance, well, okay, there is a chance that once phase 1 and phase 2 even happen, that we could have a spike before phase 3 happens, and different sets of protocols. So again, I think, you know, I think we do recognize the fact that, you know, that it's not imminent. You know, we're not looking at, I wish we were, but we're not looking at kickoff being June 1st for anything athletic. But we do have some time. So I do think that this is one committee in one area that, you know, we are going to continue to see protocols evolve, while at the same time, to your point, Dwayne, we do see that layer of this gives time for some level of consistency, whether it's leagues or, in Julian's case, you know, what the schools are doing across the state. So anyway, sorry for rambling there, but no, I hope you kind of understand what I was trying to communicate there.
One question I had for the staff, if I recall from our introductory Zoom meeting with the mayor, these reports need to be finalized by the 15th. Is that still correct?
Let me see. Yes, that is correct. The 15th at noon.
So that would just to give you enough time to get that stuff in by the 18th. I think that's what we're at. So yes. Want to make sure. I think the plan is for this group, if possible, we like to probably have 2 more meetings next week to get to that finalized. So, and we're okay to have have those, whether that's email conversations with each other to schedule those, right? Correct?
Yeah, so we can, I think it would be good if we could go ahead and schedule the next meeting today, just while we have everybody here. I think that might make it easiest. And then maybe next week we can go ahead, or during our next meeting, we can go ahead and just schedule that third meeting. Or if you all want to go ahead and put a hold in for that third meeting, we can do that as well right now.
Is this a good time for everyone as far as on a weekday next week?
It's for me, 11.
This works for me.
Yeah, I'm on Zoom all day. I can move anything I need to.
Yeah, I'm actually free at 11 o'clock any day this week. So, which is odd in itself, but normally it doesn't go that way. Do we want to do to give us enough time? One other thing before we set the meeting from the staff, if we get to a point where we want to, hey, for different parts of the subcommittee, hey, can you work on this and get back? That all has to happen on these Zoom meetings, or can we have any conversations offline?
Yeah, so in order to comply with that open meetings law, we can disperse information, if that makes sense.
Right.
But we can't discuss business of the subcommittee.
Okay.
There's kind of a fine line, but if there's, you know,
so if we're giving assignments or something like that, that's fine.
Kevin, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the basic is you're okay to share things with each other
Mhm.
can't really conduct business or have these kind of open conversations away from the open format.
Okay.
And Kevin, the other thing that we've run into, would you agree, this group is so small, it'd be real easy to accidentally get a quorum.
Really would. That's a
So
good.
we want to be really careful.
Gotcha. Okay. Just want to make sure. I would think earlier in the week is better to give us more time, because I'm assuming that our next meeting, we're going to be having some direction to come out of that meeting, and really for us to work a little more independently to come back for the next meeting with some things. Obviously, prior to that, we'll probably be sharing some different documents or things we have or things that are out there. And so I would suggest on Monday or Tuesday. Does anybody have any conflicts on either one of those days?
Got one on Monday, but I can adjust if that works better.
I'm like Kim, I've got one that I can move real easy. It's internal.
Me too.
I have one on Tuesday that I cannot move at 10:30.
Okay, well,
Monday it is.
let's do Monday same time. Is that okay with the staff?
Yep, I think we've got that open.
And you all will send out the meeting invite. We'll just accept.
Yes, that's correct. And Melissa, if you could just go ahead and put that on the Google Sheet.
And Wayne, I would just ask if there's things you want us to have prepared or look into between now and Monday.
Mhm.
Just let us know, and one of us will find try to find those documents.
Kevin, my only request is do we know, at least publicly or through your contacts, what Greg and the folks in Louisville might be doing? That's our really only comparison. I think the rest of the stuff around the country we can share, just in case they're doing something.
Okay.
And I wanted to add, I hope if you haven't gotten to send, there's a list of questions that we put together that I really didn't expect anybody to have, maybe to have a chance to even do anything more than look at those. But I think it could be helpful. And the reason that those were put together is to give you a chance to, really think about it, spend some time, answering those questions, because I think it'll be helpful for our next meeting. And, and again, I do think there's, the reopening is huge, and the recovery is even, I'm going to go with channel Trancy here, more huge or huger, whatever the case may be, but the recovery is also important. So there's a few things in there that kind of lend itself towards recovery thinking. But you all are leaders within your industry, and I think it'll be very helpful for the mayor as well as everybody else here to not only spend some energy around reopening but also recovery. So it takes some time. Got a few days to kind of fill those out, think about those, and I'm not saying it's not a homework assignment we have to turn in, but I think it should be helpful and could be part of what we eventually give to the mayor and give to Kevin and Quinn. So if you don't have them, let me in. Is there anybody that doesn't have those questions?
Did those come from you? I don't think I got those.
Okay.
I think the email was from Dwayne that I got. So
that was just the one this morning,
right.
But I can either resend them out, Kip, or you want to. Doesn't matter. I can resend those questions out to the group.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
And what we might be able to do is, if we get those back soon enough, we can probably do a collective document so everybody can kind of see the bullet points.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yes, under one caption.
Yeah, Kevin, that was going to be my question, because if I don't send something in when I think of it, I forget it. So if I might send you something quick through Melissa or you or Quinn, and y'all just and Kip, and y'all just add it to the list.
Yeah, and again, it's not meant to be a definitive questionnaire. If there's something that's on your mind that's applicable to this exercise, have at it.
Yeah, I think that'd be good to have that as part of our agenda. I'm gonna make sure that's on our Monday's agenda. But if we can get those answers, everybody answer that questionnaire by the end of the business day on Friday. That way they got a chance to, sooner the better, obviously. And then we can kind of compile that stuff to be part of the things we talk about. And then I will get an agenda to you guys by the end of the day on Friday as well for Monday's meeting.
The other thing too, I think might be useful as well. I think Julian made this point earlier, is that, a return to competition, I think he's right, is looking like phase 3. I don't think any earlier than that. So what I might do is I might try and get some more clarification from the governor's office in between now and our next meeting,
Okay.
just so we understand what the difference is in between what phase 2 looks like versus what phase 3 looks like. So we know some of those parameters we're working under.
Great. I think that's a good idea. Did somebody mention to me, did we talk about Knoxville? Aren't they a little bit ahead of us on the reopening?
Yeah. So Knoxville kind of released a document that is the final document stylistically will look like kind of what we're headed toward. Content wise, if you read through it, I think it might differ a lot from what our final product will look like. But if you haven't, go ahead and give it a look. And if you can't find it or don't have it, Melissa, we can somebody in our office we can send it to you. So just stylistically, as far as some of the guidelines and benchmarks, it's kind of what we're looking for.
Anything I send to the group, should I copy the staff and Kip on? Just so
yes, please.
You might hear about another bill coming out next week.
All right. No problem. I will get that done. Any questions or further comments? Holly, I'll be in touch with you about a possible exhibition men's basketball game too.
Yeah, since we're gonna have to play people going by the same rules, that's a good idea.
We might be playing a lot of sports. We might be it.
We might play two Lexington schools this
You don't have
year.
to worry about transportation. You can just walk down the
That's
street.
right.
Keep it in the city. 2 Lexington schools.
Thank you all a lot for again
Thanks,
agreeing to do this, because I know everybody's got a balancing act right now. Their own world, their families, and then this. So again, but I really, and I know the mayor does too, really appreciates everybody's willingness to carve out a few hours to hopefully make this work better when we're on the other side.
Thank you, Kip.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank y'all. Stay safe now.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.